Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video we will be making a Spring Web MVC application and we will be connecting this application with database. So we'll be working from very basic level, so it will take time. So it will be a video series and I recommend you to subscribe this channel. Let's now get started with this project. Now let's make a new project. We are using a Spring tool suite and we are going to make a new project. For that we need to click File, New, Spring Starter Project. So what this will do is Spring Starter Project is basically like all the basic dependencies, all the basic needs, whatever the basic things are there in a Spring to get started will be automatically downloaded and it will be configured automatically. So you no need to do anything, you just for getting started it will be required. So we will be getting this pop-up after we click on new Spring Starter Project. We can name this application anything. I will name it as my application and I will name it as anything you can give my name. Click on next button. From here you can select what you want to use. We want to use a web. I will be selecting web. Click next. After that you click finish. So here is the progress of the project. It will take some time to download all the dependencies and till that time it will be downloading from online server, so you need to be connected to internet for using this. So for me I have a local repository, so it is not taking much time. For you it may take time for downloading it, so be patient. Now after everything is done we will be getting our project in this form. It will be like this directory structure you will be receiving. This will be pre-defined, like it will be already populated and you will be getting whatever the name of the application you have given. It will be coming with the main method, which this is the starting point of any application. So a run method which will be passed with the argument of my application.class. So this is your class file which is used to run. So this is the application starting point. Okay, now we need to know one more thing, like this is the resources folder where some static page can be given and some properties, the file which things are varying, like some variables we need to give, we can give it in this properties file. Also this is the jar file, Java 1.8 we are using jar file for, and this one is we are using this Java SC 1.8. Also Maven dependency we are using. So this is a Maven project, so all the dependency will be downloaded automatically, and this Maven file is controlled by pom.xml file which will be here. So when you open this pom.xml file you will get this window. You can go to dependency tab and you can see all the dependency present. You can also add your own dependency by just clicking on add button, and you can type if you know the name of the dependency, then fine, or if you don't know you will be getting experience, you will be knowing as you progress in the video. If you go to the source file for this pom.xml, you will be seeing here the properties tag, the dependencies tab. So these two dependencies are already downloaded as a part of Spring Boot Starter project, and we selected web, so for that dependencies are already downloaded. We selected Spring Boot Starter project, so already the dependencies are selected. Now moving on the tutorial, we will be checking what this application is doing. So One more thing we need to configure first when we will be starting for the first time. What happens, like you will be getting some errors, you will be getting some problems, you can see what are the problems here. Sometimes the problem may be due to you have not configured your server. So we can configure our server from here as well. How to configure our server from here? Click on my project, right click, go to properties, and you can see here runtime. So the runtime is not populated with anything, any server is not available here. So all runtimes, you can see here this one, you can select this one. If it is not selectable, then what you can do, you can just go to project facts. Here you can select web dynamic project. Also you have to use Java newer versions 1.8 I am using here. Also you can just uncheck this option, just click apply. Now you go to runtime, and you are able to select it. So apply and close up. Okay, now we are done with the basic settings. What we can do, we can run this project once and see what's happening. So for running the project, you need to build the project. So Maven, go to Maven and go to update project. So we are updating this project. Here we started. So the building is complete. Now go to run as SpringBoot app. Application is started. Now we can go to our web browser. Just give localhost :8080. Click enter and you will land in this page. So this is like error 404, that means page not found, means there is no page, whatever the page it is searching, it's not available. So what we need to do, it's just starting the application, it doesn't have a controller, nothing is there. So Spring is basically like once the request comes in from the client, it directly goes to the controller. So I don't have any controller, so it will be obviously saying no page found. What we can do, we can give one controller here. Go to source folder, create a package, name this package as because.controller. So this controller package, we will be creating one new class. This new class will be named as application. Anything, you can name it anything. Controller, and just hit finish. So now we have a controller package and controller class. So the application, once the request comes here, request from the client comes to the controller, it doesn't know. First of all, we have to make it identify it as a controller, that it is my controller. The Spring, once the project starts, once you run the application, it will be knowing that this is the controller. So for that we need to give a annotation called controller. Control space. So this controller will be selecting. Now when there was no controllers, we will be using a web.xml file for controlling all these mappings. So now we are using here annotation based application. So what this will do, this will directly go to the controller. Once the request come in, it goes to the controller. Now what the controller will do, it won't do anything because we don't have anything here. It's just a class name. It won't do anything unless we provide any method for it. Suppose we are providing a method called public string hello. This method, just a simple method, it is having a return type as so it is having a return type of a string, so this should be returned. But how it will return this method, it came to the controller, how this will return this thing? For that purpose we need to give one more annotation saying that this is the mapping to this. Okay, so suppose the user enters here just a slash. So what it should do, the request goes to the controller and it searches for this URL home. So request mapping we have to provide. So request mapping is another annotation. We will be using request mapping and we will be giving some name to the request mapping. What name will be coming here? This thing will be coming here. So when you call home, this should be aware like, okay, this controller will be aware like, okay, I have to handle this request and call this method. So start it. So now our controller is aware that this is the method that we have to call when the client passes this home URL. So this is a string return type. Let's see what happens when we are deploying this to the server now. So the application is deployed and we will be checking it in the server and refresh it, nothing happens. So the thing is here, this is a string return type. It will not be directly returned on the console as this is expecting some page view technology like JSP or time leaf or anything. It is saying to pass it. So how to display it directly on the console? We have to use a tag called response body. So this response body will be telling the controller that you have to print this thing directly in the form of a string as it is on the server. So let's deploy this application again and see what happens. So the application is deployed. Let's go to the browser and click refresh button and it is saying hello from Spring. So let's recap once. In this browser we are passing this home. So this controller takes the request home and it is searching where the home is available. So this method he has to call on the home, but it is having a string return. Also we have to mention like it is how do we want to return it, response body. So it will be returning directly as it is. In the later videos we will be using a JSP page for displaying the output, and also we will be using MySQL server for communicating with the database, and we'll be making a login page and a registration page. Hello once again and welcome to the second session of this tutorial. So we'll be starting from where we left off. Now we are going to connect a JSP page to our application. In this session, the output of the video will be something looking like this. We'll be having a login page with this name, with these fields and all, and a navigation bar. So let's start. Now we are going to create one more method, and that method will return this page. This page it will return, this method will return. So let's write it. Public string welcome return also, you have to add an annotation called request mapping. So now we have mapped over this page, but we don't have this page, so we can create a JSP page with this same name, welcome page. Okay, so JSP page, where we should create the JSP page. So basically by default it is configured, or SpringBoot is configured with this folder, like templates, static pages, templates. We can keep the pages here, but we'll be using one more method. We'll be making one new folder, and we'll name this folder as web app. And in web app we'll be making one more folder with name web inf, and in web inf we'll make one more folder for our JSP pages, and that we will name it as view. You can give any name. And one more thing, you have to place in web app you have to place one more folder, that is resources. Okay, so now in this view folder we will create a JSP page. So you have to click new and others. You have to type here JSP file, next, and you have to name this JSP file. Make sure you are configuring your JSP file in the proper location. Web app, web inf, view, and we want to put our JSP file in view. And also we will name this JSP file same name as whatever you have given it in our application, welcome page. Next, and finish. So we got our JSP page here. Next, what we can do, this JSP page has to be configured with our application. So in order to do that, our project will require some of the dependencies, and these dependencies are, let's search on internet. For searching a dependency, you have to go to Maven repository. you have to type here Tomcat JSP. So here we got Tomcat embed JSP. Click on this link and you can select any. These are the version. Latest version will be listed at the top. You can take any versions. For now I'm taking this version, so you will get something like this. Maven will be here, something like this. In the dependency form you will get. Just copy this and go to your application and open form.xml and in the dependencies, this is dependencies. Inside you have to provide, anywhere you can keep these dependencies. Suppose I am keeping it here. For formatting in Fury using Eclipse or STS, for formatting this code you have to give a shortcut Ctrl+Shift+F, so it will format. It will increase readability of your code. Now you can see something here. This is the problem. If you are getting any problem like this in your form.xml, that means that your application will not run. We can do one thing, we can remove this, give a tag called scope, and in scope you can type provided. So you have added this dependency here now, and also you require one more dependency for running the JSP page in a Spring Boot application. That dependency is called starter Tomcat, something like that. Spring Boot starter Tomcat. So you can go here, you can choose it, copy, and you can go and paste it here anywhere. Save it. Overriding manage dependencies. So let's remove this line. Okay, now it's fine. Actually I have already downloaded this dependency, the correct version, so that's why it was giving error. Now what we can do now, we have to update this application. Just go to Maven, update project, select your project and update it. It's updating, it's showing here. Okay, now project it updated, and let's deploy it. It's my application, this one. Let's go to the browser and we will type. So we got 404 error again. So now what we can do, we have downloaded our required dependencies also, and still our application is not running. That means something else we need to configure. So what we needs to be configured? See here, we are keeping our JSP file not in the default location. The default location is this one, templates, static, but we are keeping our JSP file in some other location. So we have to tell explicitly that we are keeping it here. That we will be doing using application.properties file will be here in resources, you have to open your application.properties, and there you can provide like where are your JSP pages. You have to mention it here. So for that we have some specific methods. We have to follow that, and we have to remember that, because all the time we will be using that method. We have to remember it. That is spring.mbc.view.prefix. So everything will be small letters equals to, you have to provide your this path after the web app, that is webinf view okay. You have provided the prefix, also you have to provide the suffix. .jsp. So we have configured it. Let's open our welcome.jsp page. We have not given anything yet, so let's insert a title. So our channel name, and let's give a heading h1 JSP page. Welcome from JSP page. Now guess we have done everything, all the configuration. Now let's run this again. We should deploy it. And we have deployed it. Now let's go back here and run it. So this time we got welcome from JSP. Hello guys, and welcome to the third session of the tutorial. In this session our motto will be to connect our application with MySQL server. So you need to have MySQL workbench, or you can download any database, like you can download maybe Oracle, or you can proceed with any database, but I'm using MySQL here. We will be giving some values in the URL, like whoever is a new user, they will have to register it and save the data to the database. And in the fourth session we will have an application looking something like this, in which we will be having a new registration page, and we have a functionality to view all the users. So whatever the users available in the database, that we can see here, and we can register a new user. So for example, so when I click register, the user will be registered and it will navigate to the home page. And when we go to all users, so whatever the user we have registered, that will be displayed here, and we can modify the user from here, or we can also delete the user from here. So first we will focus on our third session, in which we will be taking a username, password, all the registration details from the user, and we will be persisting it into our database. So let's start. So this is our controller class. I want to have one more controller, separate controller, like this is a REST controller here, and this is our main controller here. So I want to separate all these two controllers here first. So we will go to make a new class, and that class we will name it as REST controller. Click on finish. So it's a REST controller, so we need to specify it. So REST controller, you have to import the package and it will come like this, and you need to have a method so this method will return and we need to provide the mapping for it. Get mapping and addressing. Okay, so and what we have in the application controller, we can delete this thing. So now the response body, we have specified here that it's a REST controller, so we don't have to give response body, it will understand it. We can, I want to separate everything from our application controller, so I want to remove this, save it, and this is our REST controller. So let's try to run it. So it's running. Let's go here and we'll paste the URL. And this is home page. So now what we want to do, we need to save the user into the database. For that we will have a method string save user, and we will say like the user is saved. The return will be user is saved. Okay, but where is this user? We need to create a user class which will be having all the objects like username, name, first name, second name, age, password we will be having. So for that we will be creating one more package, and that package will be naming it as model. So we have created a model package. So now in this model package we'll be making one class, and we will name that class as user. Okay, click on finish. So this user will be having some parameters. For anything which is to be saved in the database, we need to specify that class as an entity class. So entity class will be in persistence, Java X persistence. So but we have not uploaded that dependency in the form.xml. You can download it from Maven repository. SpringBoot starter data JPA that you have to go, and you can select any version. you have to copy it and you have to just go to pom.xml and you can paste it anywhere. You can, if you are getting any problem with the version here, you can delete the version and your parent version will select automatically what version to use. Now we have this entity class. Now in the entity class we have some fields like private, int, id, string, username, first name, last name, age, and password. So for all these fields we need to have setters and getters. So for getting setters and getters, you need to go to your source, right click and go to source, generate getters and setters, select all the fields and you have got the getters and setters. Also you need to have a constructor with all these fields. Go to source and generate constructor using fields. ID I don't want to have as this. I will make it as a primary key and auto increment, so I don't want to change anything from the ID, and I want to keep this public. And where I want it after password. Click OK, and we have got our constructor. Also we want to have one more thing, that is one more method, toString method. Go to source and generate toString for all the fields. Press OK, and we got one more thing. We need to specify that which is our primary key. So we will give @id. So this id is our primary key, so I have given @id. So this id and this id is not the same. This id is coming from JPA, JavaX persistence. Okay, this is to identify that this in every table. Suppose we have a table, user table, so in every table we need to have a unique identifier, and that is called a primary key. So we need to make it as a primary. Okay, if you want username to be primary, you have to give @id here. What else to be done here? So for now we will be doing this much only. We need to have something which will persist our data into our database, and that thing we call it as a business class, or we can call it as a service class, where all the things will be happening. So we need to make a package, and we will name that package as services, and in that services we'll have a class, and the class name will be user service. So we need to write some logic, and that logic will persist the data into our database. We have got this service. So what we can do, this is a service class, so also we need to specify that it's a service class. So we have to give this annotation service, and also we have to give transactional. So because we are performing the transaction with the database, so we need to make it transactional. Now let's make a method which will save our data into our database. Public void, let's say save my user. Okay, this will save. Just give a command like save. What you have to save? User. Or save user. But what is this save? Save is a method. What is this user? User is our this one, this user. But this user, how it can be available here? In this method we need to pass our user, and this is our user class, this one, and this is the instance of that user, and we are using it here. Okay, let's import this. It's from the model, or it's imported. Now what's this save method? This save is a method which is coming from interface, and that interface is called CRUD repository. Okay, so that we have to implement that method somewhere. So let's implement that method first. Just go to new and create a new package, and the package name will be, you can give repository. And in this repository we will make an interface, and that interface we will name it as user repository. And we can also add extend interface. I want to extend my CRUD repository. This is coming from Spring Data JPA. Just press OK, finish. So this will give you an interface user repository, and in this user repository extends CRUD repository, and here we need to pass our entity class. Entity class we need to provide here, and integer. So this we need to import it, and that's it. We are done with this one. Now we have a user repository which will be having extending a CRUD repository, and this CRUD repository is having the save method. So in the user service, when we are going to use this save method, we need to use it from user repository. So but user repository is not available here. So what we can do, we can just go here and we can create an instance of user repository. Final. Private final user repository. Okay. to have a constructor of this class. So we are done with this one. Now we will use the instance of this user repository interface here. Dot. Now we have got one save method, and we will save our entity user. Okay, that's it. We are done with our user service. Now we need to go to our REST controller. The REST controller, we have to save this user, right? To give a mapping to the REST controller @get mapping, and in this mapping I will say save user, double quotes. So now we have to save this user. So how we can save this user? Like this controller will contact with the user service, and the user service will take help from user repository to get the data from the user and just save it into our database. So for that we need to have this user class here. Sorry, we have to put something called @request parameter. So this request parameter will ask the input from the user, string username, first name, last name, age, and request parent, string, password. Okay, so user equals to new user, and this will take some parameters, username, first name, last name, age, and password. Import your user class. Now using the service user service, save my user, this method we will be doing the operation. So we need to call our user service here, but user service, how it can be available in this class? Private user service user service, just give @auto add. So instance of this one, this user service is now available in this class, and we can use that user service dot, which method we have in this here, save my user. We created one method, right? Now how many parameters it will take? It will take one parameter, this user. Select that user and hit save. So we have got this. Now one more thing we need to do. We are done with this part. We need to go to our MySQL. We need to have a table. Create a table. The table name you can give any. Suppose I've given my table, and in this table we need to have some fields. We need to give our table name here. In our entity class, we need to provide our table name also. Table and name equals to what name we have given? My table. Now everything is done. We have to configure our database related things that we can do in application.properties. Just go here, and some predefined codes are there which we have to by heart it. Will not waste time. I will just copy and paste it. So Spring data source URL will be your, it will be same only. The thing is, we have to change our database name, Tecno-Tab YouTube. Okay. Now username you can give whatever is your username, password your password, and the class name if you are using a MySQL, this will be your driver class name. If you are using Oracle, you have to choose your driver class name. Also some Hibernate related dialect we have to select, like we are using a MySQL, so MySQL 5 dialect will come here, and logging level debug. When this thing is done, we have to save it. Now let's run our application and what error we are getting. Let's see. Let's go to our browser. This is working fine. Save user. Save user, which will be taking some parameters like username, %, host name, last name, age, and password. Let's press enter and we have got something. JPA entity manager for transaction nested, exception is JavaX persistence, unable to acquire JDBC connection. Let's go back and check here what's the problem. So guys, we have found why we have got this error. This is because we have not added a dependency which will connect our application with MySQL. That is a MySQL dependency that you can download it again from Maven repository. MySQL connector. This dependency you have to download and you have to use it. Let's go back to our application. pom.xml. You can just download the dependency and add it here. So I have got MySQL dependency. Now again let's try to run it. Go back here. Enter. And user is saved. So let's go back and check it into our table. And yes, the user is saved. Let's try to add one more user. User name. Let's save everything. Let's leave everything as it is. User is saved. Go back to your MySQL, refresh it, and it's coming back. So we have successfully connected our application with the database. In the next session, instead of passing data from the URL, we will directly have a JSP page. In that we will pass the values and that will be used to save in the database. Hello guys, and welcome once again to the fourth session of the tutorial. In this fourth session we are going to achieve something like this. When we click on this brand button, we will get this home page, and when we click on registration, we will get this registration form, and after clicking the submit button, the data should be submitted to our database. And in the fifth session we will try to configure this part, but in this session we will limit ourselves to these two tabs. So without wasting much time, let's get started. In the last session we have used this REST controller. In this session we are going to use our application controller to configure our JSP page. Most of the things will be configuration related, and today the coding part will be very less. We need to configure our bootstrap stuffs in our project. So for that you need to go to and from here we can download the file compiled CSS and JS. Also you need to download a jQuery. You can download the zip file from here, or you can download the zip file from my Git repository that I will place the link in the description. I have already downloaded it and I have kept it here. And also you need this jQuery file that you can download from some third party, and you can keep it in this folder. Now let's go back to our IDE and let's try to configure. So for configuration we need some static files. In the web app we will make a subfolder. Let's say name it as static. So in the static folder, just go to properties and open it from here. Go inside a static and close this, and whatever you have downloaded, just copy it and paste it in here. You pasted it here. Now close it, go back to your application, just refresh it, and we have got these three things. Let me expand it. This file you can create it by yourself. This is just a blank file. In our JSP page, for the sake of time I have written some HTML codes. I will just use that code and I will give a link in the description. You can take that code from there, or you can type it by yourself. I will explain the code. Just copy this and we will use these things later. Just copy up to the head part. So these are some mandatory things that you have to take care. It cannot be memorized. You can just make a copy of that and you can use it in all your projects. This is the link provided, and this is the style sheet. So this style sheet will be having all the bootstrap predefined classes, and you need to make sure like you are keeping everything in this folder structure, and make a body, HTML body, and inside the body you need to have one more thing, and that is this part, your JavaScript and jQuery part. Inside the body you need to have this thing at the last. Make sure you are having the proper naming of the folder structure and your version that you are using. Now we are going to use navbar. After writing these things, we will test our code. Let's go back and deploy our application. Okay, fine, it's deployed in 8080 and we will hit welcome. And we have got it like this. So let's go to our welcome page and add some more code. Now this is a Jumbotron which will say welcome to Tecno-Tab, and you can subscribe my channel to support me. Refresh. It's not coming here. One more thing we need to do in here. There is something called dev tool. So in all my projects you can say one dev tool. There is something called dev tool that is used for automatically deploying your project. Again we have to go to Maven repository, hit enter, dev tools, and you need to open this SpringBoot dev tool. From there you can select any version, copy it, go back and paste it in your dependency. And you can remove the version number as your parent is maintaining the dependency. So now you can see our project is having a extension of dev tools, and let's go to our web page and just hit refresh, and it will come like this. Our brand name, welcome. Now let's work with our application. Now what we want our registration page as well. We are having our registration page with a container here with the heading new registration. Then we are using the form, horizontal form, post method, and our action is save user, that we have to take care. Next is our type input type equals to hidden. That means that whatever the data you are sending, that data should not be rendered on your view. So it is coming here. Now we need to create a method in our application controller. So let's create a method. So when the user clicks on new registration, this registers would be displayed. So let's map this with our JSP page. Here this register page will be displayed. Now we want to take this form from here and put it into our new registration, and in this brand name we want to keep this thing as on. So for that we need to go to our application controller. Let's do some changes here. HTTP servlet request, then request.set attribute. Let's give our attribute name mode say register, and here also the same thing. And here we will say like mode home. So soon you will understand what is this. Now let's go to our JSP page. There is something called JSTL, which is a tag library to keep the things in proper tabs. So the tag library, we need to download the dependency for that. Go to Maven, and here type JSTL. You need to download this Java X Servlet JSTL. You can download any version. And go to your pom.xml. Just give the dependency anywhere. And this is managed by our Spring Boot. If you are using JSTL, you need to use one more dependency, servlet. Here is servlet API. Go back here and download version 2.5. Just paste it here and save it. Now go to our JSP page, and here we want to refer the tag library. So for referring the tag library, we need to have this, and you should have this tag after doc type. You need to have this tag after the doc type. Now let's go back here, and this is our navigation bar. We don't want to keep any change on that. When you are using that in JSTL, we have something called C chooser. So this C choose will be used to choose between different tabs. Let's come back here, and one more thing, we need to type C when. In this we need to provide $, and also this should be where you want, till where you want to display. So I want to display this much things here in the home tab. So this mode home is taken from here. So when the user will pass this welcome, it will only display the mode home things in that page. Let's do this for our registration also. C and dollar enclose this in single quotes. Also don't forget to put an ending tab. So we have got this welcome, and when we click on new registration, nothing is coming, right? Let's go back and check what's the problem. So here is the problem. Here mode register should be there. Now save it, and definitely you will get it. This is the home. When we click on register, we are getting this one. Now we need to write the method so that when we click on register, it should be saved to our database. Now let's go to our controller, application controller, and just make a new method. Public string, say register user, and return and give it a mapping. So this should be post mapping because we are posting it into database. So one more thing you need to make sure, like this save user, and in the REST controller you're also having the same request mapping. So both the mapping should not be same, it should be something different. So controller should know like which handler mapping to call. We need to have something called model attribute, and this model attribute is from user, and user is the variable. Also we need to bind the result, and request import this user. We need to save this user. So in order to save that user, you need to call your service method. So service, you have a user service here, so you call this user service in your controller class. So you can call that service class now. user service dot method we have defined in user service for saving. Save my user. This save my user will save this user, and that's it. Again, after saving the user, we need to display our home page. So request dot set attribute mode. What mode you have to declare? You need to show the home page. So mode home. Let's come back here. So now see here. Everywhere wherever you are using this user, that is referring to this model class user. Now it's time to run our application. So I will take the name of the persons who were already waiting for my videos to be uploaded, and they are these people. And register. No default constructor found, state exception in. So we should define a default constructor. Let's go back, and in our model class we should have a default constructor. So this is our default constructor. So this time the user is saved. Let's go back and check it in our database. Open this. Let's check this, and yes, we have got whatever we entered. So let's try one more. We'll take one more user from here. Let's go back to our database and refresh it. So we have got it. Welcome guys to the 5th session of the tutorial. In this session we are going to achieve something like this. This data will be coming from our database, whatever we have configured. Also we are going to implement a delete function. So when the user will click a delete button, the user will be deleted from this page as well as from the database. And when the user will hit this edit button, it will give the option to edit the user. But in this video we will limit ourselves to configuring this all user space and this delete function, and this edit function will be your assignment. So let's start. So the question comes from where to start all these things. So let's go to our project. when the user will click this all user, it will go to some page. Let's configure that page first. Go to your welcome page, and we have something here. See, all users. When the user will click all users, it should go somewhere. So let's say show users. So when the user will click this all user button, this is coming to show users. So this is fine. We are getting an error 404. That means that the page is not found. It is looking for a JSP page and it is not available. So let's go to our application and let's application controller. Let's give a method public string show all users and return the welcome page, and just save it and give a mapping to it. Go back, click on all users now. So now we are getting something like this. So it is finding the page and it is displaying the welcome page. Now next thing, what we need to do in this all users page, I want to display a table. So for the table we need to write some HTML code that I will show you. Here in the welcome page, just come here, paste our code. So we have pasted our code. Now when we go back and hit all users, it is giving some internal error. So we need to again give a C1. C1. Let's say like I want to display this when the mode is equals to all users. So when the mode is all users, that time we have to set this view. Just put the ending tag. Go back and check our output. We are getting something like this, but we have to configure our this thing in our controller. Let's go to our application controller, and whatever we have done it here, let's reuse this one. Copy, paste it here, and going to do the same thing here. What is the mode we have defined here? All users. So let's go back to application controller and let's say all users. Let's go back now and let's run. So let's check the code in the HTML, what we have done. So this is just a container, and we have given that ID to container. This ID can be anything. Heading is all users, as you can see. So this HR is for giving an invisible break after this all users. Now we have taken a responsive table. Some more class we need to import from Bootstrap. This is for the header of the table, and table row and the header we have defined like this is going to be by header. This header is closed here. Table body for each variable user, and it is taken from the users. And here we are yet to implement this users, but we have already coded for it. Like it will get the username, password, and everything from the database. We want to fetch all these user details from our database. So for that, let's define a method. This method will return the list of user objects. So show all users. So this method will be returning a user objects. Return users. We need to import this list, and this users we have defined in our JSP page here. So now let's take a list of user, new array list of user, and let's import this array list. Let's apply a for loop. So it will go to user repository, and in the user repository we have a method called find all, which is coming from CRUD repository, which will iterate through all the users and it will get the data. This for loop is used for iteration, so don't get confused with so many users here. This user is for iteration. Whatever we are iterating, that variable will be stored in this user, and this user variable is holding the objects of array list, and this user is our user class. How do we add elements to the array list? Users dot add. What we need to add is whatever we are iterating, we need to add there. Every time when it is iterating, it is saving the data to this array list, and we are returning that array list here, return users. Now let's go to our controller. In the show user, we need to call that users. Set attribute users. Let's call our user service. So user service, we have defined a method called show all users there. Save this application and run it. So this is working. Now let's go to all users, and yes, this is working fine. Let's cross check with our database. The same things whatever is here is available here as well. Let's implement a delete function which will delete the users. So for that we need to go to our JSP page, go here, and here next to the age I want to have a column for that. So let's say th delete. Let's see what impact it has. So we have got a column here. In the table body also we want to have this delete function. So let's take a span, and in that span we'll say class. This class we will take from Bootstrap. You need to go to Google and type Bootstrap components and just click on the first link. You will get a list of components here. I want to use a delete. Okay, here it is. This class I want to use. So let's go back here and use it. Let's see what's the impact. So we have got this delete button here. Now when we click on the delete, it is not having any function assigned to it. So in our JSP page, let's give a href. This href, let's say it will trigger delete user. So when you hit the delete button, it is going to delete user. But what to delete? Let's say like it has to delete particular ID. Now let's go back here, refresh it, and when we click on this delete button, so it is saying like delete user. id equals to 7. We have to implement this delete user in our application controller. Let's define a method here. And it will return, give it a mapping. Request param int id How can we delete this user? We need to define a method in user service for deleting that user. This delete my user will take an int parameter, which is id, and we have to call our user repository. In the user repository, which is implementing our CRUD repository, has so many methods. So it has a method called delete id. So this will delete our given user. So we have in the CRUD repository, we have a method called void delete, which will delete the user. Now let's go back to our application controller and give a command so that it can delete the user. So just we need to call our service method, user service. In the service method, we have defined something called delete my user, this method, and this method will delete our user. But after deleting this user, we need to do one more thing. So the user is deleted here, and after deleting it will directly return the welcome page. So if we run it now, let's see what's happening. Let's delete this user, and it is deleting the user and it is going to welcome page. But after deleting the user, we want to display all the users again with the updated list. So let's go to our application controller and do that modification. So first of all, we want to display all the users. So let's reuse this code from here. It is doing the same thing, like fetching all the data from the database. After fetching the data, we want to show all the data into our web page. So now we can see the first user, whatever we have deleted, is deleted from here. Let's go back to our database and verify if the user is really deleted. We click on refresh, and yes, the user is deleted. So we have successfully accomplished our task, and there is a task for you as well. Your task is that the way we have implemented our delete user, the same way you have to implement edit user. So when you click on the edit button, you should be getting the option for editing that user. So your assignment is implement edit user in the user table. So I will provide some hint. Hint is you have to go to your JSP page, you have to define a header edit. Then here also you have to define one href for date user. When the user clicks on that update user button, you have to configure something here. Next, you have to make use of find one method which is in CRUD repository. Next, map the update user in the controller class. Welcome to the 6th session of the tutorial. In this session, we are going to achieve something like this. So, in the last video, we have covered how to delete this user. In this video, we are going to cover how we can edit this user. So when we will click on the edit button, we will get all the data from the database, and we can make changes into it. So suppose I'm making it 50. and when we click on update, this data will be updated in the database. So when we go and check, the age is updated to 50 now. Also we are going to implement this login. So when we put any wrong user ID or password, and when we click on login, we will get this invalid username or password. And if we are putting the correct username and password and click on login, it will navigate to a new page. So this page will look like this. So let's start with our session. Let's go to our JSP page, and last time we implemented this delete user. So here only we want to implement this edit user. href equals to edit user question mark id equals, in the span the class name we will give bootstrap components. So go to components, and here this class we will use. Just copy this and paste it, and we will close this. So let's go back and check what we have got. When we go to all user, we have got this edit button. When we click on edit button, so it is selecting the ID and we have to delete this ID. So we have to make some changes in our application controller now. Let's give a method here. And let's give a mapping to it. So this mapping name, and in the JSP page this mapping name should be same. This method will accept a parameter, int parameter from the user. Also give so when the user will click this edit user, it will take us to the mode update. Now let's work with this mode update. So in here let's use our previous code. Let's use this mode register and let's paste it at the last. So this mode register, let's make it to mode update, and here the heading should be update user. Here the action performed is save user. This save user is already defined in our application controller, so it will perform the same action. So here what all things need to be changed, everything will be same. Here this register, let's change it to update. Run our program and see what's happening. So when I click on the edit button, it is going to update user. Let's click on update button. So when we click on this edit user button, it is performing the save action. The data we are sending, that is getting saved. So that is creating a new user, and this is a blank user, but we want to edit it. So for editing it, we need to have a method. We have a method in our CRUD repository. This method is find one. So this find ID returns whether the entity with the given ID exists. So let's go back in our user service and let's define a method. Public void int ID, and let's call our user repository find one. Now let's go back to our application controller. and in here we need to fetch the data from the database and display it into our JSP page. So let's do that. Request set attribute, and we will call our user service here dot edit user. In the user service, this return type should be user, and we will return this. The application controller, now it is fine. So now let's run our application, and when we click on this edit button, so it is fetching the data. Let's take the name of some of the people from my channel, Prabhat Kumar, and let's update it. To go back here, and we can see this same ID, the user is updated. Let's go back and check in our database. Refresh, and we can see the name has came here. Let's add one more person, Sachin Thakur. Let's go to new registration. Let's register. Go to all user, and we can see this. And suppose we want to edit this, so we can go here and we can see this name is picked. We can change the age was 27, and when we click on update, the user is updated. Now let's go and implement our login. So when the user will click login, it should go to login page. Let's define a method in the application controller to show our login page. Login, let's return welcome page. Let's run it. When we click on login, we need to have this username and password fill in here. Let's reuse some of our code. Say mode login. Here we can provide some action. Login user. This is the username field. Let's use the password field as well. Let's have a login button. Here let's change the header, user login, and the button name as login. So when we hit on this login button, action will be performed. So we need to define this action in our application controller. But before that, let's display this login page first. HTTP servlet request. Mode login. Let's run our program. So now let's work with this login user. Let's go to our application controller and create a method, public string login user, and this will take model attribute. Let's say like when the login is successful, return home page. Let's give a request mapping. Login user. So this login user will take two parameters, the username and the password. And let's go to our user repository and let's define a method here. Public user find by username and password, string username, string password. Use the same method in our service, user service. Return let's go to our application controller. Let's provide the implementation. If user service here we need to pass user.get username, user.get password is not equals to null. That time it will return home page, else request.set attribute, let's say error, and the error message invalid username or password. After that, if it is invalid username and password, display the same login page again. Return welcome page. Now let's have a JSP page with this name home page. In the view, let's have a JSP page. File name should be home page. Now let's use the same format whatever we have used in welcome page. Go to the top, copy everything till here, go to our home page and paste it. Also we need to have this closing tags. So when the login will be successful, this home page will be displayed. Let's go and check our application now. So when we type something wrong, let's see what happens. Okay, so here you can see validation failed for the object user. Okay, one more thing we need to make sure here, that we are using here in the mode login is input type hidden. This line should not be used. It is used for hiding the data, so that tag we should remove. Now let's go back and again check. We have provided a wrong username and password, that's why it is displaying this user login page, but we should get this error here like invalid username or password. So for that, so we have to go to our JSP page, and here before the username we should display error message. So that we need to use JSTL tag. If not empty error, class equals to alert danger. So it will come in red color. It's danger alert in double quotes. We need to have this value cout, and that should be in the application controller. We have this error and error message, so should keep this error. That's it. Now let's run our application once again. Wrong username and password. Here it is not coming inside. Div tag we need to close it after cout. Let's try it again. Now it's coming in correct place. Now what happens when we give correct username and password? Let's take new user from database. Login. It's saying like this home page is not found. Let's check why. So that's because this home page is somewhere else. Where it went, let's see. It is here. Let's move it to here in the view. Let's run it again. Then when we log in, we get this home page. In this home page we want to display few things here. For that we need to go to our welcome page. Let's copy few of the things from here. Jumbotron, we need to have some videos here. I want to have an alert bar here. Div class equals to alert success. So this alert success will be green in color, and inside I want to have a heading. Let's say H4, and heading should be lesson 1 Spring Boot tutorial. Let's see what's the change. And you can see we have got a green tag. First of all, we need to have all these things in a container first. So let's define a container. If class equals to container, and we want to keep it text centered. Let's refresh it. You can see the size is same as the Jumbotron size. That's because we have kept this in a container. Let's go to add one video, Spring Boot tutorial video 1. Let's go to my channel, and here I want to use this video itself. I have a share option. We have embed option here. When we click on embed, it will give the link to copy. So copy it. Let's go back and paste it in our container. This is the size of the video to be displayed. Let's make it 400, height to be 200. So we got this video here, the same video. If we want, we can provide any paragraph, and we can type anything. Close the paragraph. You can have this as many times as you want. So when we go and refresh it, so you can see now. So that's it from this session, and in the next session we will be applying some of the validation features and some of the security features in the upcoming videos. So guys, be updated, and thank you for watching my videos.